All right, guys. We're gonna do today we are doing part two of our mixing it up lab. So for part one, remember here we dissolved sugar cubes into water, four different ways. So we did that on this page and this page. And lastly, the last lab for this unit before our test will be part two. On this lab, we will be focusing on concentration and dilution vocabulary words. And we will be looking at three different mixtures of pink lemonade. So I already have our three mixtures here. As you can see, they're a little bit different strengths. The camera doesn't show it too good, but you can kind of tell that this one is darker than this one, right? So I think the lighting, this one's actually a good bit darker than this one is, but I think how the lighting is, it makes it look a little lighter. So just to be clear, this is the lightest colored one, this is a medium colored one, and this is definitely the darkest colored one. That'll be important moving forward, and I'll bring that up again later. So let's just get a little bit done on our journal. So I want us to add two short things here. So you can either add it at the top up here, or you can add it down at the bottom here, wherever you want to. I'm going to put mine at the top, but the bottom's fine. So first we're going to add concentration. Or concentrated, I'm sorry. So concentrated, tastes strong, and dark color. And the other one we're going to add is just the opposite of concentrated, and that will be diluted. And for diluted, we will just say tastes weak, comma, light color. And we're basically just reiterating what these two words mean and making a note so we can look back quickly if we need a refresher on what concentrated or diluted means. You might remember these words from our when we wrote down the vocabulary. Basically, concentrated is when something tastes really strong, and diluted is when something tastes weak. So imagine, you go to McDonald's, you get your drink cup, and you go to the drink fountain. What do you do first? Well, you fill it up with ice. And then what do? Well, you put in whatever you want to drink. I would choose root beer. So I fill my cup up with ice, then I fill it up with root beer, and I take a sip. Well, how does that first sip taste? It tastes very strong, like soda. And how does the soda look right now? Well, it's a very dark color. But once I sit down at my table and I'm eating my meal, maybe 15 minutes later, I take another sip. Does the soda still taste strong? And is it still that same dark color? It's not, because the ice has started to melt. So now it tastes weaker. Now the color is a little lighter, because what's happening is the ice is melting in the drink and it's adding water to your soda solution. And so your soda at first was concentrated when you first filled it up, but as the ice melts, it becomes diluted. It starts tasting weaker. The color gets a little lighter. I'm sure you've experienced that before. So let's move down and let's look at number one. What does the solution of 250 milliliters of water and a half teaspoon of Kool-Aid look like? Well, first off, each one of these is 250 milliliters. Each one of these is 250. So we have 250 milliliters here, here, and here. This is the one we're looking at first. So this one says, what does the solution of 250 milliliters of water and a half teaspoon look like? So tell them, you'll write down a little bit on these words here. and just write a little bit. Let's see if I can get you a little better view. All right, so right here, let's see, how do you think this looks? Does it look light pink? Does it look weak? Does it look faded? Does it look clear? Does it look watery? Right, so take a second and write down how you think this one looks. Describe what this solution right here looks like. I'm gonna write light color and pinkish. You can write that, or you can write something you would like to. All right, next, number 2 says, take a sip from your cup and describe the taste. Now, obviously, I'm gonna flip this around for a second. Obviously, you guys don't, you guys can't taste it. So what we'll do is I'll take a sip for you and I'll describe it. So we're gonna add a little bit here. It tastes like water. Tastes like lemon and tastes like water with a little lemon in it. All right, so let's go back. So on this one, so right here at the top, take a sip from your own cup and describe the taste. So this one I'll answer for you, and y'all can write this down. Tastes weak. We can say very watery, because it did. It tasted like water with just a little bit of lemon in it. All right, so let's look at. So one thing I want to look at. Let's go on to number 3. So number 3 says, does the solution with 1 teaspoon of Kool-Aid look different from the first one? So what you're looking at now is you're comparing these two. Does this one here look any different from the first one? And y'all can fill in these answers. What do you think? Does this one look the same as this one? Or does this one look any different than that one? So this one looks darker, definitely. You can for sure see it right now. You can see how this one is a darker shade of pink than this one is. So what should we write? All right, so answer number 3. Does solution with 1 teaspoon look different from the solution with a ½ teaspoon? All right, and then we have to explain. So yes, it looks different, and explain. Let's write it. It looks darker colored than the first. You guys feel free to pause this video anytime. You might want to look at some answers or back it up if you didn't quite catch something. All right, and now let's, number 4 says, take a sip from your own cup and describe the difference in the taste. All right, so we will take our second one. We will add a little bit here. And we'll take a sip. Well, that one tastes a lot better. Still not awesome. It still tasted a little weak. Personally, I like my pink lemonade a little bit stronger, but it wasn't bad. It definitely tasted better than the first one. That's for sure. So let's jump back to our notes. All right. So take a sip. We took a sip from the cup and describe any differences. All right. So first difference is it tastes it tastes stronger than the first. Tastes stronger. More flavor less water. All right, so more flavor tasting, less water tasting. All right, now let's go down to number 5. What do you notice about the solution with 1/8 of a cup of Kool-Aid? So now we're talking about this one right here. So this is the one that has 1/8 a cup of Kool-Aid in this 250 milliliters. So in this tube, right, they all started with 250 milliliters, and I put 1/2 teaspoon of mix in here. In this one, I put 1 full teaspoon of mix, and in this one, I put 1/8 of a cup, which is actually a good bit more. So looking at this one, do we notice anything different about this one than we do about the other two? Absolutely. The color's a lot what? A lot darker. Absolutely it is. So we can add that. Let's come down here. All right, what do you notice about the solution with 1/8 cup of Kool-Aid? It is a lot. I'm going to put that in dark in capital letters and underline it because it is a lot darker colored than the first two. So now let's look at this part. Is there a scientific term that we can use to describe what we are observing? What they're asking about when they're asking what we are observing. So we see this one and we tasted it. It does not look very strong. It looks pretty clear and it's a very light pink. This one, we used more powder in. This one we used more powder. When we tasted it, it tasted stronger. We can look at it and see that it's a darker color than this one over here. And if we move one more step, we can see even more pink color, right? This one's a lot darker. The reason for that is the amount of mix that I put in it. So for this, in this 250 milliliters here, I only put this much, right? I only put this much seasoning or this much powder in this first one. In the next one, right here, I put, let me fold that up. In this next one, I put this much powder. So you can tell why this one is darker than that one, because if we hold these up, I put a lot more powder into the second one than I did into the first one. So more powder means darker color and better tasting. So this one has a stronger taste. It has a darker color. So tastes strong, dark color. So the second one is more concentrated than the first. The first one tastes weak and has a light color, so it is diluted. The second one tastes strong, has a dark color, so it is concentrated. And now this third one here, if we used this tiny little bit for the first one, if we used this decent amount for the second one, what do y'all think is going to happen when I show you that we've used this huge amount for this third one? Look, you can compare these. This third one is probably over twice as much as both of these first two combined. So we used a very good amount of seasoning, a very good amount of drink mix for this third one. So what we're noticing, what we're seeing is that we started with a weak one, we got a little stronger, and we got even more strong. So we started with a diluted one, we got more concentrated, and we got even more concentrated. So looking back at number 6, is there a scientific term you can use to describe what you are observing? Well, we are observing the drinks become more concentrated. As we start here, it gets more concentrated and more concentrated. So that scientific term that we're looking for is concentrated. right? Because this is referring to the drinks being darker in color, tasting stronger, because it's becoming more concentrated because we're adding more powder, more solute. Now let's go on number 7. It says, take a sip from your own cup and describe any differences. So let's do our sample cup one more time. Ooh, that's a nice color. All right, I'll flip this around. There we go. All right, and cheers to science. Oh, that was bussin'. That was bussin'. Yeah, I'm about that. Y'all, this third one where it's at, that's where it's at right there. This one tasted good, real good. So, whew, that was tasting real good. All right, so let's go ahead. We took a sip and describe any differences. Well, I'll tell you what I described. The taste was very strong. All right, very lemonade, or very lemony. Very lemon tasting. Something else interesting that I noticed was the third one. It felt thicker, like the solution was thicker. You know, like it was like heavier or denser. Yeah, I think that's the word. The solution was denser. So we can say felt thicker or denser. All right, now give y'all a second to copy that down if you need to. Now, let's come back and look at number 8 and really focus on this word solvent. So the question says, did we change the amount of solvent in any of the 3 solutions? So we need to make sure that we know what solvent and solute is. So let's go to an empty space on our page, either the top or the bottom, wherever you have it, and let's write solvent. The liquid that absorbs the solute. And then under that, let's write solute, and that definition is the material that is absorbed by the solvent. Now pay close attention to these words because they are very similar, but they mean something very different. So the solute is the material that is absorbed by the solvent. Let's make an adjustment. Let's erase this by and say absorbed or dissolved by the solvent. So these are key words here, absorbed or dissolved, because in a solution, one material is dissolved or absorbed by a liquid. So in this case, the powder, I took the powder, I put it inside the water, and I mixed it up. So let me ask you, what dissolved? Did the powder dissolve or did the water dissolve? The powder dissolved, right? That's why we don't see it. The powder was absorbed by the water. So is the powder the solute or the solvent? Well, we know the solute is absorbed or absolved. Is absorbed or dissolved by the solvent. So, did the powder dissolve? It did. So the powder is the solute, and the water is the liquid that absorbs the powder. So the solvent is the water, the powder is the solute. So on our question, did we change the amount of solvent in the three solutions? So remember, the solvent is the liquid that absorbs the solute. So did we change the amount of solvent? Did we change the amount of water in any of the three solutions? And we did not. They were 250 milliliters for all three. This was 250 milliliters of water. This one's 250 milliliters of water. This one was 250 milliliters of water. So did we change the amount of solvent in the three solutions? No, comma. They were all 250 milliliters of water. And for our final question, which solution was the most concentrated? Provide evidence. All right, so y'all take a second, look at these three. Which of these, first, second, or third, was the most concentrated? Which one tasted the strongest and has the darkest color? Bam, bam, bam. This guy, right? So, which solution was the most concentrated? Like we just noticed. The third was most concentrated. Now the second part says provide evidence. Well, remember right here, concentrated tastes strong and dark color. So do we have any evidence supporting strong taste and dark color? Well, our first piece of evidence is we can tell this color is much darker. So that's evidence we can provide. The color is darker. Another one we did, well, y'all didn't taste it, but I tasted it, and this one tasted delicious. This didn't taste very good. This tasted a little better, but this one tasted very strong. This one was very good. So that is our second piece of evidence. So back down to number 9. All right, the solution, which solution was the most concentrated? The third was most concentrated. Provide evidence. So the evidence we had was its color and its taste. It had a very dark color and a very strong taste. All right, guys, and that is it. That's it for our lab today. That is the last lab that we will do before. That's the last lab. I'm going to flip this around so talk to y'all for a second. That's the last lab we will do before we test. Probably taking your test in a few days, so study up. You have your study guide. Study your lab information, right? Review the information in our labs, how we talked about concentrated and diluted, solute, solvent. Study your vocabulary words. You're going to do well on it. All right, guys. Good luck. Have a wonderful day. Have a good weekend.